Welcome to the REI Mastermind Network, where host Jack Haas gathers amazing stories from leaders in real estate investing. In each episode, our guests will tell you what they're doing that works, what they've tried that failed, and best of all, you'll learn actionable steps to take your real estate investing to the next level. Now, here's Jack with another value-packed episode.
We have Lindsay Davis with Spartan Invest, and you can find her and her team at spartaninvest.com. But I really need to call this out because Lindsay has been in this business now for, has it been over 7 years? And you've 5 brands, over 4 companies, over $50 million in transactions and a variety of things going on. Really appreciate your expertise and giving us some time here today, Lindsay, as we dive into turnkey real estate investing.
Thank you so much, Jack. I really appreciate it. And I'm happy to be here and talk more about turnkey real estate in Spartan in Alabama.
So I really appreciate your time. I have to admit, I've been a little soured myself on turnkey real estate. So I'm going to hopefully ask you a few questions to help other people's avoid some of the same mistakes I went through.
Sure. Yes. And real estate investing in general can be very scary. There's a lot of reasons for investors to be hesitant. And so, yeah, please fire away.
Well, let's start there. I mean, you, with all of the experience, especially looking back now, let's just face it. I mean, you're the one sheet they sent over, they even classified you as a millennial. So you're obviously younger than I have, but with 7 years of experience, looking back, what are some of those pros and cons to real estate investing that you would advise people?
Yeah. So really quick, I'll just kind of give a brief overview of what Spartan Invest actually does. So we are full service turnkey provider in that we purchase, renovate, rent, and then sell properties to investor clients. And then we have the property management company in-house that continues to manage the property after the fact. So essentially the one-stop shop for turnkey real estate. And that difference is very important when you're looking at investing in rental. Messed up. That difference is really important when you're looking at investing in rental properties. And I can talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But a lot of the reasons to be hesitant in purchasing real estate is, the risks that come with it. No investment is perfect. There's always going to be those risks. Well, what are your risks with real estate? So you've got possible evictions, you've got maintenance, all of those things. They're not, hey, what if, or if this happens, it's a matter of when. And I'll just be honest, we don't sugarcoat anything. We're very transparent with the risk that come with it. And your property will probably have an eviction at some point in time. Your property will definitely have maintenance. There are going to be tenants that move into your particular property and do not take care of it. And then you're going to have to come behind them and spend a lot of money to get that property back in the right condition. However, it is a marathon. It is not a sprint, just like any investment. So that one tenant that you have, we're going to turn around and replace that tenant with a different one. And that is going to take care of the property. Yes, you can get some bad ones back to back, but the likelihood is slim. So, we like to look at we like to look at our properties as our whole portfolio. So our property management company manages about 1,500 properties in Central Alabama, North, and also Chattanooga, Tennessee now. So of those 1,500 properties, our eviction rate stays right at about 1%. So yes, if you have one property and they go through an eviction, that's your one cash flowing property. So that's going to hurt. But looking at the probability of your going through an eviction, you've got that 1%. And I feel like the vast majority is the best way to analyze whether or not, or what your risks are.
Sure. Well, let's back up a second there, because I always find it interesting to find out how people end up in their real estate investing niche. I mean, you're focused on turnkey now. What caused you to go there?
So my business partner and I started with just your HGTV flipping to owner occupants. We were buying distressed foreclosed properties. We started in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and we would purchase off the courthouse steps from real estate agents, renovate them, stage, the whole 9 yards, what you see on TV so much these days. And we were doing that back in 2011, 2012, back when the real estate market wasn't near what it is right now. And during the winter months, it's pretty common that the market dies a little bit. Same with leasing our rental properties. It slows down in your October to February timeframe. So during those months and those quarters, we were really struggling. We were a startup company. My business partner and I weren't making any money, personally. And we just struggled through those times. So we went out and purchased around 40 rental properties, and we were managing them ourselves. And the revenue from those rental properties was really keeping all of our overhead in line when the properties weren't selling, our owner occupant properties weren't selling. So it's like, wow, these properties are really helping to stabilize our company and our pay. This is something here. So, we knew the market. We had the contractors. We did a ton of research on starting property management companies, what investors look for, what they don't like, et cetera, and just kind of started the turnkey model from there and started acquiring as many rental properties as we can and renting them. And we simultaneously grew the turnkey company, Spartan Invest, and the property management company at the same time.
Sure. So, what steps have you been taking then? I'm probably going to diverge just a little bit. Doing the property management thing, frankly, is kind of a thankless job. There's a lot of moving parts just in that part. How have you been able to maintain the workload there and stay keeping the interest aligned between your investors?
Well, I'll be honest. So the property management company is not how Spartan makes money. That is not how the property management company only generates revenue in 3 different ways. And that is from our inspections that we do for investors. And those are optional, your property management fee, which is 9%, and then the leasing fee. So we set up our property management company not to essentially be the profit center for Spartan Invest. So we're able to align all of our interest with our investors, and that if our investors don't get paid, we don't get paid. So we are incentivized to go out there and collect as much rent as possible, because if we never collect it, then we still don't charge our 9% property management fee. We look at the property management company, and the goal of it is to essentially service our Spartan Invest clients. So it's very different than property management companies that are constantly acquiring portfolios, and that, hey, look, that's the company, they've got to make money, and it is a small margin company, and it is 100% a thankless job. You nailed it there, because it is very difficult at times. It can be very tedious, time consuming, and very stressful. And like I said, the margins are slim, so there's not a ton of money in property management. And a lot of investors choose to, if they dip their toe in to purchasing rental properties, they attempt to manage the property on their own, especially if it's, a local purchase, or if it's a property that they just moved out of. I'll just manage it myself. And what I find is that investors who have done that and then come to Turnkey are like, oh, yes, I completely understand. Yep. Nope. I understand that maintenance. I've been through that before. And I guess shouldering and understanding the inevitabilities of, kind of just rental property in general.
Sure. So, let's go from the beginning to the end, if you don't mind. How do you source your properties?
So there's several different ways in that. The first one's wholesalers, and I don't know how much you talk about wholesaling on your podcast, but essentially, they're marketers that will go out and just, go door to door, send out those flyers of we buy houses, and try to find leads and then bring them to us, and then we pay them essentially a finder's fee. So we have a ton of wholesalers that we work with all throughout Tennessee and Alabama. And we also purchase foreclosures off the courthouse steps, although not near as much as we used to. We purchase from realtors that post online. And then we also have the license fees, we have the franchise license for WeBuyHouses.com, and we do our own internal marketing directly to owner occupants looking to sell their homes. And most of the properties that we source that way are from clients who have acquired a home through an estate. They don't live locally, and they're like, hey, look, I just inherited this particular property. I need to get rid of it. I don't know what to do with a property in Alabama. And we have a lot of business, or we get a lot of business that way.
Sure. So what are a couple of the things that you do once you get the property purchased? Do you what does the process look like?
Yeah.
Do you typically send in your team at that point, or?
We do. So we'll evaluate the property prior to our purchase, and already predetermine what the rent and renovations and the resale value are going to be before we ever purchase the property. And we have a custom calculator that, man, I could talk forever about how amazing this calculator is, because our guys, it is broken down by zip code. So our guys can walk into a property, put what zip code the property is in, put the features in, and it'll automatically generate what that property will rent for. And it's based on just the sheer number of properties that we do have rented in the area. And I don't know 100% as far as other surrounding states, but Alabama does not have a very good source for what properties have rented for. So if you wanted to look at, hey, the previous rental history of a particular property, that information is just not available. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we're able to pull from our current, our current inventory and utilize that information to make sure that we have the correct rental rate at the beginning, it's just vital to make sure that, our investors have a good rate of return. And on the renovation side, it's the same thing. We evaluate and do the renovations with our investors in mind, and that we have kind of a 3M rule. And is it a safety must? Will a tenant pay more for it? And will it drive down the long-term maintenance of the property? So we really focus on your CapEx items, and that we do new tin roofs, new HVAC, new water heaters. We do luxury vinyl tile flooring. We don't put carpet in any property whatsoever. And whatever property or renovation that you're going through, if you are putting carpet in a rental property, you will have to, you're going to have to replace it very, very frequently, almost on every turn. It's just kind of one of those inevitabilities. So we do luxury vinyl tile to try to eliminate that turn cost when tenants do vacate. We do granite countertops, and then any kind of electrical or plumbing upgrades that are needed per that property and stuff. So we really go in on the renovations with those items in mind, and that, hey, what is going to kill the cash flow of an investor? Well, a new roof would, those larger, like I said, those large CapEx items, that's what we focus on.
So when do you typically get the potential turnkey buyer involved? I know the reason I'm asking this, because I know some turnkeys, they essentially wait until a property is ready for a renter, or even has a renter in it, versus sourcing the property and then even have the investor put the money up to pay for the rehab. Right.
And either way, I know a lot of companies do it different ways, and hey, having the investor put down a down payment prior to the purchase, I completely understand that it's a lot of capital to carry. However, we are set up to where we'll source all of the properties and start the renovation process before we ever display the property to investor clients. We put all of the information into I know a lot of companies call it the pro forma. We call it an investment property description, an IPD. We like to be different. And so before we put all that information into the IPD, we've already started our renovations on it. So the IPD shows what the price is going to, or what the purchase price is, what the rental rate is, projected taxes, insurance, and what your projected rate of return would be for that particular property. We place the properties under contract while they're in renovation. However, we don't close the properties until the property is completed and on the rental market. Now, our days to deposit, which we track that quarterly and real time, and a rolling 52, same with occupancy, because, hey, cash flow is king. We have got to make sure that your property is occupied in order for you to have any kind of return. So we place so much emphasis on occupancy and leasing. So our days to deposit right now is 28 days. And then we typically close the property about 2.5 to 3 weeks after the renovation is complete. So if your tenant is not already placed, by the time you close, you're waiting about a week and a half on average right now.
Okay. So you obviously then have a target return that you're shooting for per property?
We do. So, and it varies. It varies based on market and the particular property. We do new construction as well. So we will build turnkey rental properties for investor clients. And Tuscaloosa is different from Birmingham. It's different from Huntsville and Chattanooga. But our overall average for our renovation properties were from about 11 to 15% return. And that's finance, that's unlevered funds. And then on cash, you've got about 7.5 is what we average. Now, new construction obviously is a lot more expensive, but your deferred maintenance is a lot lower. It's a lot better than it is on the renovated properties. So we're at, on leveraged, I think we're right at 9 to 10%, and then about 6.8 on cash.
Sure. Well, just to remind everybody, head over to SpartanInvest.com for some more information and details regarding what Lindsay and her team have going on. So you talk about construction. I mean, that probably does that take another team on, or is it the same skill set?
No, it's another team, and it's fairly new to Spartan Invest. With inventory being extremely low. It's like that across the country, but it's been pre-COVID. I think the indicator of a healthy market as in regards to inventory is 6 months available. Pre-COVID, Alabama was at 3 months. Now we are teetering on the 1 month available inventory. And I know that is how it is across the country. But that is how those are the numbers for Alabama. So you've got the inventory shortage. So we're filling that demand. We do sell some to owner occupants as well. And then you have the investor clients that would prefer a little bit lower on the return for a brand new product. The tenants are obviously paying more for the rent, and the risk of maintenance is a lot lower. So we have a client base that would demand that. So about 1.5 years ago, we started Corinth Construction, and they specialize in just new construction, and it's about a 4% team now.
Sure. So, a lot of people are going to be fairly new to this concept of turnkey real estate investing. If they were interested in this, what type of questions should they be asking a potential provider?
That's such a great question. I really appreciate you asking me that, because it's just huge. Whether you do business with Spartan or another turnkey provider, please ask about the property management piece. Yes, the renovation is very important. You want to know what all was done to the property, but you can do that due diligence through your typical home inspections, right? So you get a third-party home inspector to really evaluate the property that you're about to purchase. Make sure you get your septic inspections and your wood infestation reports, but those are all pretty standard across the board. And anybody looking to buy a house is going to do all of those things. However, your long-term success depends on the property management piece. Ask them how long it takes them to get a deposit. Ask them, hey, what's your average days to deposit? Or, how long it sits vacant? What's your vacancy rate? What's your occupancy rate? What's your maintenance ratio? What's your average turn cost? We call it a move out cost. Other companies call it a turn cost. What does that look like? How long does it typically take to turn the properties? Because if they don't know, they're not tracking it. And to me, those are the really big red flags, and that, hey, you don't know what you need to focus on and get better at if you're not tracking. And those are just so important. If a tenant moves into a property and, had their lease runs out, they vacate, and it takes 4 months to get that property back to rent ready condition and back on the market, that are 4 months that you're still paying for your mortgage if you finance the property, obviously, and you're out any kind of cash flow. So asking those property management due diligence questions is so important.
You mentioned granite countertops. So I'm assuming that you're talking about single family homes that are in probably higher end C class, maybe B, probably going into B class neighborhoods. Would that be fair?
Yes, our focus is like C plus, B minus, and then B plus areas, mainly for our new construction. And what we found is that putting granite countertops and, ceramic tile, we don't do vinyl flooring, the laminate flooring, I should say, but the ceramic tile in the kitchen with granite countertops and the luxury vinyl tile in all of the other common areas in the bedrooms, just bringing the overall rent condition higher. We're able to get a little bit higher rent than, your typical market rent, and attract a more qualified tenant base. Which helps keep, our eviction down, helps keep our AR percentage down, and helps the investor long-term. It helps get the properties rented quicker. There's not a lot of properties in areas that we specialize in that have granite countertops. So it is an opportunity for single families to rent a property just in a nicer quality.
Sure. What is your long-term communication style for your existing investors then? You're managing these properties. Are you meeting with them on a monthly basis? Are they just strictly via portal? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is one of the things when I mentioned earlier that we were doing a ton of research trying to figure out property management companies and, hey, what do investors like? What do they not like? The biggest thing that they did not like was the communication with their property management companies. And I can understand that 100%, because it is very difficult to stay on top of all of the minor things that can come up while managing a property. However, we have in-house client services managers, and they are cut off at a certain number of portfolios that they can handle. And it's monthly communication. So if you're an investor client, you have, let's say, one of our client services managers is Sarah. So hey, you purchase a Spartan Invest property. Here is your CSMs, we call them. Sarah, she'll be your point of contact moving forward. So any questions, they'll do a setup call. We use PropertyWare as our property management software. So she'll sit down with you and do a setup call. Hey, this is where you go to get all of your invoices. This is where you can see copies of all of the bills. Here's where you can get your lease, your statements, anything like that. Make sure that you understand where to find all of the information, that you have her contact information. And I just lost my train of thought right there. That quick.
No, that's
sorry.
perfectly.
I just went over it. I'm sorry about that. But no,
you have a dedicated you said a customer
dedicated CSM. Yes.
Yeah.
A dedicated client services manager. And our communication is monthly. Now we call you quarterly. But we always communicate with you at least monthly and prior to any kind of invoice that is over $500, or if you have a tenant that has, hey, told us that they're going to move out, that they're vacating early. Anything that's big that comes up with your properties, they're going to go ahead and let you know what, even if it's not in your month communication. We started the property management company with calling all of the investors once a month, and found that a majority of our investors like, okay, that's great. Please don't call me. just call me if something's bad. Like, okay, gotcha. So, but we do have some investors that would prefer a monthly phone call. So, we really try to make sure that we communicate with the investors the way that they choose to.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Everybody has their unique style. And what I especially like that you seem to have you just said you have a limit. You know exactly how many properties each one of your managers can handle at a time.
Yes, we have 4 in-house, and we're always hiring and recruiting for more CSMs, because as we continue to sell more, we're going to know we need those touch points, and having that one-on-one with investor clients, it just helps, especially with the remote purchase, and that most of our investor clients have never laid eyes on their property prior to or even post-purchase.
Sure. Well, knowing what you know now, when it comes to real estate investing, what is one of those things that you wish you would have known when you got started that you use on a regular basis today?
That is a really good question. Is that me personally? Because I do have rental properties as well. So is that me personally, or
that
maybe
could be
just
personally?
From a company
yeah.
standpoint?
Well, I kind of wanted to go a little personal because that's where a lot of people are. They want to. How do they get that first real estate investment?
Something that I wish I would have known. I would probably say do as much due diligence as you possibly can on contractors that you are hiring to do work for your properties.
Amen.
And I feel like anybody who's done any kind of renovations to their property or a rental property knows how difficult it can be. And this is not a knock on contractors. We work with contractors every day. We have a great, great team of them. However, it took a while to build that great team. So, so please do as much work and research on who you're choosing to hire if you do venture out to do this on your own, instead of going with a turnkey provider like Spartan.
Yeah, no, I can't agree more. I could tell you horror stories regarding that too. Again, head over to SpartanInvest.com to touch base with Lindsay and her team. But it looks like we're kind of coming to the end of our time here together, Lindsay. But before I let you go, is there a question you wished I would have asked you here today?
One thing, and I don't know if this is you asking or me just not mentioning, but I do want to mention and throw out there, I always try to focus on the negatives as well, and that I'm an operational person. I'm not a salesperson, so I won't sell you the butterflies and rainbows, like, hey, your property's going to have an eviction. However, I don't think that I did a very good job of making sure that the pros to turnkey real estate were really discussed. So sure. I do want to make sure that your listeners do know that real estate is one of the best and most proven, reputable ways to build wealth, especially passive wealth. So I don't want to cast a cloud over rental property. I do want to be very real and transparent with the possible risks. However, the rewards are typically a lot better than majority of other investments.
Yeah, no, I can't agree more. You're talking about properties in a different part of the country from where I reside too. And there is something to be said for that. Actually make it truly passive, because when I buy a rental property in my backyard, I have a tendency of going out of my way to drive by, take a look, check on it myself. So when you have a place like you that you can find a trusted turnkey provider, there's a little relief there that you wouldn't typically have otherwise.
Right. And you're not dealing with the 3 a.m. phone calls of a busted pipe or anything like that. The headache is gone, so you can just enjoy the reward of it. And that is our goal. That is our passion, is that we want to make real estate investing for everyone and make it as passive for you as possible.
Well, Lindsay, I really appreciate your time here today. It was a great conversation. I hope you'll consider coming back sometime.
Yeah, Jack, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And if you want some more information, like you said, visit us at SpartanInvest.com.
Have you learned at least one actionable step to incorporate into your real estate investing? If so, please consider returning some of that value by leaving a positive review, subscribing to our YouTube channel, or joining our growing network on Facebook and Twitter. You can find links to all of our social media accounts in the show notes. See you next time.